Welcome to the voice of St. Anthony Parish from Allston, Massachusetts, right here on WROL, 950 AM, 100.3 FM. And you can also hear us at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. And we are here talking this week with Bruce Boccardi. He is the Economics and Labor Advisor for the Small Planet Institute in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He's also a member of St. Anthony Parish. By the way, during this interview, I mention an interview I saw with Jesse Ventura, and I couldn't remember who interviewed him. That's from Graham Benzinger, and Graham Benzinger can be found on YouTube at his channel called Graham Benzinger. Great interview, which I enjoyed, and we talked a little bit about this during this interview. So let's switch over to Bruce Boccardi. Our last interview was in June.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about maybe having another show in September, and there's a lot that seems to have happened on the labor front between now and then that we didn't necessarily expect.
Yeah, I can, to sort of put a little context. We look at one would think that, I presume that union numbers have increased because of the apparent number of strikes that are going on. And in fact, according to the BLS, and I had to sort of update this a little bit.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics.
I'm sorry, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because that's the main source that most economists and most organizations use. And then they take the charts and all the data, and they come out with the reports, which makes it a lot easier for me because it's going through those BLS website and all of their data and stuff. It's an arduous task, to say the least.
Just a quick question on that. Is that a division of the Department of Commerce?
I'm not sure. Okay. It's a good question. The Department of Labor. Well, there is a Department of Labor. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, Labor Secretary, who was our own mayor of Boston up until recently.
Yeah, Marty Walsh. Now, he did that in front of the Biden administration, and of course, then he left, and he's now the president of the National Hockey League Players Association.
Yes.
But as far as the organizational chart of where the BLS falls, I'm not sure about that. I just know that I know about what they do, and most of their numbers, like for instance, they just come out that in the January 24 report, which is the most recent one I could find, union membership fell by 0.2 percentage to 10.1, which it was in 2022. And even though that there are more people, it seems like there are more union members. The problem is that the union membership decreased because, from 10.3 to 10.1, because there's an increase in the number of jobs. So this changes your ratio. You might have more people, but if you got more jobs, it's going to decrease the amount of people in unions because like I say, the most recent figures that they have in 2022 is that the number of wage and salary workers belonging to unions increased by 1.9%. However, the total number of wage and salary workers grew by 3.9%. So, that shows how that number gets to be. And that primarily wasn't, I can segue quickly into what the reasons pretty much for that, because globalization, which is another sort of a polite way of saying, corporations took off, they went overseas where there's, no economic, no environmental regulations, no unions, deregulation, and they can just basically allow these countries, developing countries, will take Western corporations particularly, and they go there because that's what how they want to increase their profits at the expense of anybody that, especially in this country. I mean, we lost 5 million manufacturing jobs in the last 25 years.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you look at union membership in the 50s, it peaked, and some of the numbers that I have to that just shows you how dramatic. And people, we see the union movement now, and we see that it appears that there's a lot of union activity going on, and it's that to me that's a great sign. But the sort of I'd say I don't say it's a caveat, but if you really look, like for instance, at total work stoppages, they increased by 52% from 21 to 22. Mm-hmm. But most of those were in accommodation and food industries. Mm-hmm. And the work stoppages only involved 3% of the total workers involved in work stoppages. The vast majority of when I say work stoppages, that could be a strike or a lockout. But in this case, I would say, the work stoppages to translate into strikes. 91% were in the food service industries, and they were led by only either Starbucks or the fast food worker organizing campaign, Fight for 15 campaign, which actually SEIU, the union I was formerly president of, one of the locals, they were very instrumental in the success of that did happen. But like I say, the 60% of all the work stoppages came from the educational services sector, which is, that's
really,
elementary, secondary schools, colleges, universities, technical, trade schools, fine arts, and language. And so if you compare that, just where I'm sort of getting around convolutedly to get to the comparison, in 2021, you had 80,700 workers on strike. 2022, you had 120,600. Now that sounds like a lot, but then in 1937, you had 1.9 million Americans participating in nearly 5,000 strikes. Right. And according to Monthly Labor Review, this is all from BLS data. Mm-hmm. In 1949, there were 906 work stoppages with 3 million workers involved. And in 1950, there was 843 work stoppages with over 2 million workers. So, we're still behind the curve, if you will, but that has to do primarily with the industry. The manufacturing is basically gone from the United States, and it's not going to come back. People, some politicians are disingenuous about that because the corporations basically, they've bought most of the politicians that they need, and this is where the final, in the final analysis, this is what's done. The politicians decide. Mostly, unfortunately, they're deciding the policy, and it's not helping unions, and it's going against the interests of working people.
Now, it's interesting you say that because I saw this great interview, and I don't have the name of the program on it, but if you were to do a search on YouTube, you'd find it with Jesse Ventura. And Right. And I didn't know this. First, just as a sidelight, Jesse Ventura tried to unionize the WWF, which now is called the WWE. But and because one of the people who was against it was Hulk Hogan, the two of them haven't talked. You'd have to see the story to see that. Yeah. But the other thing, he said what you just said. He said that he will not run as a Democrat. He won't run as a Republican. He didn't when he was the governor of Minnesota or the mayor of, I forget the name of the city. And he says, because exactly what you said, the both parties are owned by the same companies, essentially is the way he put it.
Yeah, I think, that's well, the Democrats have a little better record, but the fact is that both parties have dominated. Well, the Republicans, there's only one wing to that, and that's the corporate wing. That's always pretty much been that way. Although way back, to be fair, former President Eisenhower, and there were actually, fairly moderate Republican politicians back in the 50s and sometime into the 60s. We had a governor in Massachusetts, Ed Brooke, who was a Republican, and he's a fairly moderate guy. Mm-hmm. He was also a black man, so that that history is long gone. Republicans are long gone, but I think that if you look at the support that politicians given to referring to what Jesse Ventura was talking about, the legislation is, it's not happening because of the Republican Party overall. You've got, I always like to compare the polls, people, Americans, and what their interests are and what they vote for, what they want in the polls, as opposed to what the politicians are doing. Mm-hmm. And in this recent poll in April of 2023, the majority of adults, this is a Pew poll, they see the decline of membership in unions as bad for the U.S. and working people.
You're listening to the voice of St. Anthony Parish from Allston, Massachusetts, right here on WROL. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. We're going to be talking with Bruce Boccardi all week, so remember that and share the program with others. You can find it at CatholicAudiomedia.com and your favorite podcast platform. And one thing I wanted to mention, and Bruce wanted to make sure people understood that when he's talking about the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which he refers to as the BLS, it is a part of the Department of Labor, the United States Department of Labor. So we want to make sure everyone understood that this is what the BLS is. In the meantime, we'll be right back tomorrow at this time on WROL. I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. If you would like to support our program, please consider a donation to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. There are several ways to consider this. One is to purchase any of our merchandise, which you can find at the shopping tab at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. There are coffee mugs there. There's also my latest book, Encounter Christ in Your Humanity, all of which you can find at the shopping tab at CatholicAudiomedia.com. You can also donate to the show directly through either the Donate tab, also at CatholicAudiomedia.com, or by sending a donation through the U.S. Postal Service with your questions and comments at 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. That's St. Anthony Parish, 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. Finally, the best way you can support our parish is to attend Mass on Sundays at 10 o'clock and be a part of our parish. We thank you for any support you would like to give to St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts, the sponsoring parish for this media outreach to Catholics and other Christians in the WROL, WEZE, and podcast listening audience. In Cristo vivimos.